What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another watch list video. Happy Thursday. No video tomorrow, as tomorrow's Friday. Hope you all enjoy your weekends. I will see you on Sunday night. I started off my video yesterday saying something like we saw positive action until I eventually brought the charts up, and I apologize for that. There was not positive action yesterday, and I went over that like 30 seconds after I had said that. So it was a mixed bag yesterday, right? You had bad breath, most names getting hit. The stocks that were bouncing are stocks that are just beat up, and there's just been nothing to do really. So. And we even saw that today even more as far as like index related names that are important to the index, I guess you could say, getting hit, like your Mag 7 and things like that. So, I got an inkling that, markets don't bottom on Friday. Shout out to TSDR for the stat, but makes me think that maybe your QQQ can push those lows from July 17th tomorrow. And, those lows will be taken out, and then, we'll kind of break down out of here. But definitely had an interesting spot. I want to go over the futures really fast here. You got your, Kospi or your EWY getting a nice 6% down move, right? Obviously, if I flip to the EWY, I have to go to 24-hour chart, same thing, breaking down. So not cool to see, right? Obviously on the back of SK Hynix, Samsung, things like that, right? We lost the Magnificent Seven today, or this week in general. They've been they've been pretty weak, right? You lost the 50. Right in here, kind of rallied up into it for 2 days and then absolutely dumped, right? Obviously, you had your Google with a horrible gap down below the 200, your Tesla, same thing, and then which is absolutely disgusting, and then your Mags, obviously losing the 200, big gap down after that. Um, but in the meantime, we've had DRAM, your memory stuff, been rallying while that stuff's been breaking down, and obviously your SMH, same thing, where it's kind of just V bounced after getting hit pretty hard, which is definitely interesting, right? Some sort of a recovery, but makes me think that these spots are going to be your short triggers for this thing to go lower, right? You're just building lower highs, and with the inside day today, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're down the after hours as well. Yeah, pretty much breaking today's lows or yesterday's lows or whatever. Today's lows for sure, but it just to me looks like shorts are the only thing that's going to work. Um, but I don't know if that will be from a continuation standpoint, because I look at like a WDC, which was an awesome spot today for however you were able to get that. And there's many names on this list as well, but you're rejecting the 50. This is on my list if we don't get a huge gap down tomorrow, because I'm not going to short into a big gap down. Same reason I'm not going to buy a stock into a big gap up, right? Because you've seen that not work. I mean, MU kind of had that today where you kind of gap up and you push above the prior day high. But I mean, if you're buying above the prior day high, you dealt with chop the whole day, and then it finally pushed, and then it closed, practically at the lows. So that's not the action I want, right? An inside day like this, after a market's follow through day above the 50 is completely different than after a massive run in something like the QQQ and getting the inside day now, right? The setup looked good yesterday, but it's not something I took because the stuff has not been working, right? You can even look at like something like net, right? Just for example, because this is something I saw off the open today, right? It was trying to push above the prior day high this morning, and it absolutely rejected and got destroyed. So, and this day's been holding up really well, 3 days tight, right? The setup looked fine, right? But the environment is just not there. So, even if you see something there like an MU, like I personally saw it and I watched it and I didn't take it and I didn't feel any FOMO from it. So I think that was good. But the QQQ to me looks like it's ready to just continue breaking down and break the lows, but it has a huge chance to undercut this, look extremely ugly, and then rally back through, and we'd have a double bottom base. But that's going to take some time, so we'll have to see if that can play out, and even if this thing can break down. We don't know. It is down the after hours. Your NQ, same thing, kind of rolling over in the after hour session after the little bear flag we've had for the past week. You got some above average volume today as well on a sell bar, which ugly. This thing to me is pretty obviously going to be going to the lows here. So don't want to be looking to the long side on anything gapping up, of course, like an MU and things like that, right? You saw WDC down in the after hours. Wouldn't be surprised if the others are also doing that. You had reports in the after hours, right? Intel reporting the after hours. This thing's been an absolute shitter in the last month. But it's pretty much flat in the after hours on a huge beat too, right? 400% EPS beat, so it's practically flat. MXL is another one where you had a 1600% EPS beat, and yet this thing is down you know, like 10% in the after hours. So, you know, still bad reactions to good earnings. Google had awesome earnings, right? And then you get the massive gap down. So it's very clear that it doesn't matter the news right now. We're reacting negatively to that. Follow price. It's the most important thing. And it's telling you all kinds of things. Whether you look at crude oil rallying, being bad for equities, right? This is a massive rally with some huge volume. So, you know, it's a pretty sharp move up. So maybe some digestion would be needed here soon. But yeah, I mean, it's super strong. You look at even like the dollar breaking out today in a beautiful way. This chart looks awesome. It looks absolutely awesome. So another thing that's not good for equities. You look at like a TNX as far as your 10-year yield, you know, it's up 5 days in a row, right? Maybe some rest in this one to come, but either way, right? Just all the negative signs. And I think even the VIX is another one where it's just up today, right? My line is pretty much your 200 day. If we're above the 200 day, it is what it is, but it doesn't matter, right? Because there's complacency in the market. So the VIX doesn't matter too much to me right now, but the other stuff kind of does. And just overall, the QQQ below the 50 day and names breaking down and a bunch of names in bull markets as far as their industry groups. I look at like a WGMI, right? You've seen a massive bounce. I tried to short HUT yesterday. I had in my opinion, a really good spot, right? You had the bearish engulfing. That's right where I started to get short, and I got stopped out in the first 10 minutes of the day today, right? Can't be stubborn, because if I stayed stubborn on this name and it pushed into close like that, you know, that's not something I want to be doing is staying stubborn on something like look at this close, right? You don't want to be sitting in a short on a name that looks like this. But Cypher on the other hand, right, and still HUT too, right? But 60% move off the lows straight up. Like this is on my list for a short, right? I would love to get short. You go to a weekly chart, you're ready to pivot. I'm watching for a breach, which is what we got today, and I'm going to be watching for a failure tomorrow. Might be getting that in the after hours almost, but this is a name I'll definitely be watching for a breach and failure tomorrow, right? I also have Ride on this list, kind of same thing, where you come into the 50 day, could have been an awesome spot today for sure, right? Obviously right at the 50 failure spot. But another one I'll just be watching through the prior day low. Probably won't take it if it gaps down, but definitely interesting as far as a short, right? You get a super monster big 44% V bounce off the lows, reject the 50, looks like a short spot. If you flip the chart, this looks like a nice higher low setup in the making. So I'll be watching this one for sure. All right, another one on this list, I already talked about stuff for Iron, right? If you want to take one of the laggards to short, right, you flip to a weekly, massive support we've kind of came down to. If you flip the chart, that's a big base, right? Look at this super nice setup it's building. It's building an awesome higher low setup here on a flip chart, by the way. So an inside day, I will watch for a failure. Wouldn't be surprised if this one's also down. Yeah, it's also down. So we'll see. But you know, you get a nice tight inside day, building a lower high. Could be a lower high setup, just a failure below. Wednesday's lows or today's lows is an interesting spot. I'm going to continue to watch this group. I would short NBIS or have this on the list. It's kind of the same thing, right? 40% bounce right into the 50 day. These are short trigger spots, 100%. You kind of even came up into that left low and rejected it. Absolutely perfect. If you were able to get names like this today, that's awesome. WDC, another one where you come into pre-market highs. If my chart will load here, you come into pre-market highs, you breach it, you fail it on like a smaller time frame, but either way, you get a nasty rejection bar on a 5-minute, perfect short spot for super tight risk, and you come right back up into that same area and offer another setup. So definitely interesting. I mean, if you short it here, you got to have the balls to be holding your stop to high a day, right? Because you don't want to just be getting out of a name because it's rallying back, unless you're like trimming half as it reclaims go up, whatever. But WDC definitely was a good one today. And I still think the chart looks like it wants to head lower. But if this thing's gapping down tomorrow in a big way, I'm not going to be shorting into a gap down, like I said, right? Your XLF looks pretty damn good. Nice pullback to the 20 day, right? You can throw up like a Dave, which has been acting awesome. Just a nice casual pullback to the 20 day. Doesn't look too bad. Hood, it's been getting hit a little bit hard, but I will watch if it's a higher low setup. Not something I'm going to be buying. You got earnings on Wednesday, and a lot of these names, you got earnings on Wednesday. So many names I took off my list because there's earnings coming up, right? HRI is another finance name that's been acting awesome. Nice flat base breakout today. Goldman Sachs, not a bad chart, getting pretty tight. Oops. Morgan Stanley is another one that looks fine, right? And then IBKR is another one that's trying to build a base, and looks pretty good. So, and the earnings is out of the way on this one now, but I'm probably not gonna be buying these. I'd rather just do nothing. But it's interesting to see XLF acting good. Another one, just a random bull market here, or a secret bull market, is your KRE. just looks like it's building higher lows, looks pretty good, right? But your mags talked about looks horrible. IGD is another one that looks so bad. I talked about how I really didn't like this range and how it looked like a distributive range, right? It looked like distribution to me. I didn't get short, right? But I just avoided the software names like TEND, absolutely disgusting. Zeta, and I can go on forever. Zeta looks nasty. Centennial 1 looks nasty. QLYS, super gross. Apps, another one that's been, I think, like a smaller cap name that made a big move after its earnings report. Yeah, so small cap name. Another one that's getting hammered. IoT, absolutely destroyed. NADN's been a RS monster. This thing's finally pulling back to the 50. Dawkins is getting hit. Sezzle offered a super nice punch bowl of death setup. If you go to a weekly chart, right? Nice punch bowl of death short. Gave you such a perfect day to short this thing with super tight risk after you get your breach and then your failure the next day. Stop goes the high day. Super nice loss of the 20 day as your wedge drop today. And then you can even throw on band, right? Another relative strength name, right? Relative strength today is relative weakness tomorrow. That's what we've just been seeing day after day. So the long side is just really not working. AMD still looks super interesting. You got an inside week. It's looking really nice. I want to continue to keep an eye on this. Dell, same thing. Continue to keep an eye on this. A pullback in the support gap or the 20 day will be a spot to watch, or a higher low built on the 50 if we get a real pull. But continued basing out of these names is super healthy, right? AMD, is a younger base compared to Dell. I think Dell is just slightly a little bit longer. So, but Dell, same thing. Just continue basing. That would be the best thing ever. But for those that are buying this thing, at the top of the base and the top of the range, or like slash the middle of the range, right? You're probably going to get shaken out if this thing has some sort of a pullback. So just be patient. Let these names offer A+ setups and let the market's environment come back around, right? I just don't want to be buying a Dell when the Nasdaq's breaking down. HPE is another one that looks pretty good, right? You got a nice flat base building, double inside week, right? You look at Dell, it's an inside week. That's about it. I think HPE. Another one, right? Oh, I already have that one. It's HPQ. There's another one with an inside week. I think it's in that same kind of group, right? Not the best setup, but right. HP and Dell are my favorite. Nice, really nice weekly charts, right? And HP is super nice weekly chart. So we'll see how this one acts. You got a support gap below. You put in an inside day. Can we push above the prior day high? Will I take that? Probably not, because I don't want to be buying breakouts in a market that's breaking down, and breakouts have not been working. So find what's been working, and that's not really a whole lot because the market's just been chopping sideways. So for me, it's really just don't do much, wait for the real pitch, and try to be as patient as I possibly can, right? I throw back up the SMH. To me, looks like it wants to break down or push into the 50 and then be a shortable spot. But I look at on semi, right? I flip the chart, right? You had the dilution, 20% gap down, right? I flipped the chart. Nice base building out here, right? You got earnings coming up at the end of the month or beginning of next month. So, but it's building a nice short setup here, right? And this is your semi, right? Marvell, horrible, disgusting, extremely low volume. Like, I mean, the volume this name is trading is absolutely nothing. It's drying up right into a 10 day, inside day. It looks like a bear flag, right? You flip the chart, looks like a nice orderly pullback to continue lower in the recent trend, which is down, right? Pang is another one, right? Failed breakout, right back down to the bottom of the range, and then 3 days super tight like a little bear flag. This looks good as a short as well. This could also go on the list. LSCC is another one, right? You're right into the 50-day inside day. Looks like a failure spot if it can fail. ALGM, another one, right into the 50, right? STM, this one gapped below the, or it's already been below the 50, but it gapped down on earnings. Super ugly. But going through my list really quick, I don't want to just ramble on forever, right? I talked about a majority of these, right? Iron for a short, Intel. I'm just going to be watching the earnings. It's the only reason I throw this on my list, right? Big semi name, prior leader. Is it just going to absolutely break down tomorrow, or is it going to hold up? It's still inside of its base. Like, this thing could gap up tomorrow or hold strong and still build out the base while the market breaks down. Would be super interesting to continue keeping an eye on this one for basing. Dell, continue basing. AMD, continue basing. Cypher, I will be watching this for a failure of the left side peak. I think that's a good spot. We'll see how it acts tomorrow. Hopefully not too big of a gap down. I don't want to short into a gap down, like I said. HPE, continue basing. We'll watch it above the prior day high. Iron as a short below the prior day's low. Eli Lilly, right? Twist, I think it was a little weird today, right? Yeah, not the best bar. XBI still looks fine, right? It's just pulling back. Not my favorite look, but doesn't look too bad. This range has really been horrible. It's been so volatile, but it had a nice day today. It had a nice day yesterday, and I liked it, but it didn't, it gap down. Maybe that was a good spot, right? You get the gap down, you buy the gap down. That might have been a pretty decent spot there, right? But just going to continue to keep an eye on this. And the reason is because, you pull back to the 10 week, super tight inside week, looks pretty nice on a weekly chart. So maybe one more inside day tomorrow and then get going, or it's just going to get going out of this little range it's built. Looks not too bad. I think TGTX is another one as far as your biotech health names. Nice base being built, had a really strong day today. The weekly chart looks fine. Continue building out this base. Yeah, it's on my list. Looks pretty good. Nvidia, I don't know how to feel about this given the Magnificent 7 is so weak, so maybe this is a short opportunity for an inside day. And I mean, AVGO, same thing, right? Right, you get an inside day right below the 50. You know, is this going to be a short spot? I don't know. We'll have to see. But in the middle of a range, I'm not going to be trying to mess with this stock. Nvidia, right? You're right under a huge pivot. It looks like it could break out. Like this looks like a good long setup for sure, but you don't have the market. But who knows? Maybe the mag's been so beat up, Nvidia's held up so well that it's just going to push above the priority high and break out. I don't know. But from what we've seen in the market, it's not something that I want to take because that's not been working, right? Riot, short at the 50-day. Going to be watch this one tomorrow. And then WDC, going to be watching tomorrow. That's pretty much going to be it for me. I'm really trying to focus on doing absolutely nothing. Tomorrow's Friday. It's not do too much tomorrow. ICHR, nice inside day. Apple kind of pulling back to the pivot. Not a bad looking setup. ASML. You're building a flag. You still haven't lost the 50. Earnings is out of the way. It's been acting fine. It's just building some sort of a little base here. So definitely want to keep an eye on this. NVT looks like a short, right? It's in that group of BE. It's building a huge base up here that just looks like a stage 3 almost. So we'll see if this one can get rolling over. BE is another one where, to me, this looks like it wants to break lower. But it's got earnings super soon, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Probably won't touch these. It's probably not on the list. Light, right? Short at the 50-day. Still looks like playable for tomorrow, right? Another one where it's like you got a huge area of support that could be like an area, you know, I don't know. But just maybe a short below the priority low. We'll watch. If you're able to get this one today as well as another one where it's like great work, but not really a spot that I'm obsessed with that it came into besides the 50-day. But I mean, I'm not going to short it when it's already down a bunch on the day. From breaching below the 50. Cisco looks like a short, right? Kind of a bear flag in the prior support. SanDisk is another one where it's like you got the 50-day and a resistance gap. If WDC somehow does not work as a short tomorrow and pushes into the resistance gap for SanDisk, this is what I'll be watching for a short right at the 50-day. But you know, not the best candle day. Had a nice move off the open sideways, broke out, and then came back. So not the best. TGTX I talked about. NVIS, another one where I'm possibly watching for a short. With this action we're given right now, all I can do is look at all these setups and say that there's a ton of short setups around the market until earnings come out and the action on these names changes. But until then, that's all I can see. Want to continue keeping an eye on those names that are basing. If that can continue to happen, I think that would be very constructive. Given the market breaks down. But that's going to be it for me, and I will see you guys Sunday night. I appreciate everyone that comes in and watches these videos. Drop a like, comment any questions or anything I can do better to make these videos better below. I appreciate everybody. I'll catch you on Sunday. Peace. Have a good weekend.